Expressions of optimism regarding the Grand Bahama economy. A contract signed today to advance a major project in Bimini. And youth development 46 years later.
The Bahamas Tonight Northern Edition starts now.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening, all. I'm Megan Shepard. Thank you so much for tuning in. Executives of the Grand Bahama Port Authority say there are signs that the economy is on a path of growth. While some major projects in the tourism sector have yet to unfold, officials say these pending developments have sparked interest in other sectors as well. Business Development Manager at the Grand Bahama Port Authority, Derek Newbold, giving an overview of the City of Freeport's business affairs thus far in the year. He says that the year started off with somewhat of a bang, with the announcement of a few major projects planned for the island, including the pending purchase of the Grand Lucaine property.
We have seen significant interest in Freeport. But this interest is somewhat different. It's not been like the interest in the past. A lot of the investors now coming and showing up here in Freeport and meeting with us, they actually have the means and the wherewithal to actually bring their projects to fruition. And that's very important. So you're going to also see a number of smaller projects throughout the next several months starting to come to fruition.
When it comes to challenges, he says that the incident at the Grand Bahama shipyard was an unexpected setback for the island. However, Newbold says that for the next 6 months of the year, he is hopeful that more good news is on the way for Grand Bahama.
I'm hoping that we're able to, at least government is able to conclude the heads of agreement on the Royal Caribbean deal. We probably will see some construction start on some of the smaller projects that we've been working on, like the Echo Bahamas. They will be starting their $10 million facility. And then there's probably going to be a few more smaller projects, multi-million-dollar projects, but yet smaller projects that should be coming to fruition within the next 6 months. Again, there is another game changer that we've been working on. We are hopeful that we would be in a position to make an announcement on that within the next 6 months.
In terms of business development, he says that he is comfortable that within the next few years, Grand Bahamians will start to see a lot of projects materialize.
I believe that within the next 2-3 years, Freeport will definitely be the place to be again in terms of employment opportunities, in terms of construction, real estate development. We're going to see a drastic shift from where we are now within the next 3 years.
A contract was signed recently with Pyramid Construction for the completion of the new government office complex in Alistown, Bimini. The National Insurance Board, through a press statement, noting that it is the final contract and there will be close monitoring and oversight of the project, which should be completed within the next 6 months. Chairman Troy Smith says he looks forward to the completion of the much-needed government complex in Bimini, which will house the Island Administrator's Office, the Post Office, the Department of Immigration, the Customs Department, Magistrates Court, and the NIB local office. It is expected to open in early 2020. Work on the complex initially began in 2015. The Grand Bahama Health Services partnering with the Bahamas Gaming Operators Association to provide help for persons who are dealing with gambling disorders. Rumiko Knowles has more.
Administrator for the Grand Bahama Health Services, Sharon Williams, says the partnership with the Bahamas Gaming Operators Association is critical as it relates to the challenges of gambling disorders and the effect it has on the community. As a result of the partnership, 2 officers will receive international certification in the area of gambling disorders, sponsored by the Gaming Association.
This upskill will improve our capacity to effectively manage our clients in the northern region, and it will put us on par with our counterparts, Sandilands Rehabilitation Center, in having sufficiently trained clinicians to serve our public.
The course will be done at the University of Minnesota at the Center for Economic Development and North America Training Institute. CEO of Bahamas Gaming Operators Association, Gershon Major, says they're obliged to ensure a safety net was not only put in place, but broadened to help those patrons who may require professional intervention at no cost. In addition, he says measures were taken to encourage persons to game responsibly and to prevent individuals from becoming at risk when engaging in this sort of entertainment.
We plan to extend this national conversation in the coming weeks and months ahead to Eleuthera, Long Island, Andros, San Salvador, and of course, East and West End Grand Bahama before the end of 2019. We have already established a one-on-one counseling support group service in Nassau at our office and will be seeking to do the same here in Grand Bahama as a result of this most important partnership. Finally, we will be expanding our safety net to include the church community and representatives from the Department of Social Services.
Addiction or problem gambling is considered a mental health illness.
Whenever our mental health suffers, we as a people, as a community, as a country, we suffer. The very definition of mental health speaks to coping, it speaks to functioning, and it speaks to being productive in our jobs and in our relationships. And so, if persons have poor mental health, they're not able to do these things. Problem gambling or gambling addiction directly, as I said before, affects our mental health.
A check in the amount of $7,500 presented to the members of the Grand Bahama Health Services. Ramiko Knowles, ZNS Network News.
A male and a female appearing in court this week on firearm charges. Anita Samantha Jones, age 49 years, of Heritage Subdivision, and 37-year-old Jamal Roll of Stollett Place were arraigned before Magistrate Rangan Johnson for possession of an unlicensed firearm and possession of ammunition. Jones pled not guilty, while Jamal Roll pled guilty to both charges. Roll also pled guilty to the charge of possession of a firearm with the intent to endanger life. Roll was sentenced to 2 years behind bars, while charges against Anita Jones were withdrawn. And now we continue our series, Independence Reflections, 46 years later. Tonight, Jamila Missick talks with a local activist about challenges impacting youth development.
I am a Bahamian. Hey yo, we come a long way and we just begun. Come on, lift up your heads.
Local activist Joseph Darville was one of the fortunate Bahamians present on Clifford Park on the eve of independence in 1973.
I was asked by the Minister of Education, by the government actually, as the Vice President of the Union, Bahamas Union of Teachers at that time, to organize the whole contingent of the schools, both private and public, for the celebration on Clifford Park on the eve of independence, 1973. And it was absolutely an incredible experience. Even the anticipation of the fact that the Union Jack would come down on that evening and that our magnificent Bahamian flag would be put up for everybody to see.
46 years later, the former educator says he has a lot of disappointments in the route that the nation has taken with respect to rearing youth.
This whole drug transportation through the Bahamas and also benefiting from it, the young people began to feel that that was the route that they were to go. Now that might have been one aspect that debilitated the movement towards properly educated young people in the country. We had a whole large number of young people, young ladies giving birth to children, and they were only children themselves. And so the proper rearing of children in the Bahamas, beginning in the late 70s, began to take a shift in that a lot of these young people had no sort of nurturing from adults in the home, and very often you had the one-parent home, you had the mother, and she was a very young person who had to deal with both boy and girl children. So that was another element which we did not pay proper attention to. And even up to this day, we still do not know how to deal with that particular aspect socially.
He says 46 years later, and there's still no handle on how older persons deal with young people and how they're going to prepare them for the future. He believes every young person, once they've reached the age of 18, should own a piece of land in the country.
What positive changes have you seen in the youth development over the years?
Well, there has been some spotty developments that have taken place. There's no doubt about that at all. But and they have been in the educational system. They have been in other ways that the Ministry of Education has put on various programs. But unfortunately, they are not impacting sufficient young people. They are not reaching out to the family islands where we have highly motivated young people.
So with all that you have seen over the years, how confident are you in the future of the Bahamas?
Well, I think there has to be some radical changes taking place at the directive level, that is at the governmental level. They have to meet in a conclave, and they have to invite people who are intelligent, wise, and who have a vision to see exactly what needs to be done in this country, and they have to go about it in a very dramatic fashion.
Jamila Mizik, ZNS Network News.
Sing it out loud.
Thanks, Jamila. Don't go away. There's more news right after this break.